the very latest word on the peace deal, the hoped-for peace deal in Gaza and Israel, or between Israel and Hamas, to be more specific. The latest we're hearing is that lists of the hostages and the Palestinian prisoners have been drawn up and exchanged. So that is a hopeful move. We still have a long way to go, I think, before anyone can even begin to relax about a full ceasefire happening. But that's where we're up to, and waiting to hear whether those releases of people can go ahead before moving to the next stage of negotiations, or whether something needs to be secured in relation to that next stage before we see any release of hostages or prisoners. Here to talk with me about this and about, potential for the future is Ahmed Fouad Alkhatib, who's a Gaza analyst, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, who appallingly and tragically lost 34 members of his family in a series of Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip throughout this war. Ahmed, I've been looking forward to speaking to you for a long time because I follow your social media content a lot, and you've educated me a lot on it, so thank you for that. Your first thoughts on this peace deal, what's your sense of hope and optimism about it, and what are your fears about it, perhaps, as well?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I am very optimistic that this could be an off-ramp for Hamas, for Israel, for all the parties involved, something to end the bloodshed, something to stop the horrendous suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza, and certainly of the remaining hostages and their families. I have a lot of fears and concerns about elements of the deal, which is really two agreements lumped into one. The first segment of it are the mechanics of how you actually implement a ceasefire and a hostage/prisoner exchange. So that's the first component. And once that's implemented, then there's a secondary, and I would argue even just as important piece, if not more so, which is what does Gaza's future look like post-Hamas's governance, post the war, the pathway towards recovery, rejuvenation, rebuilding.
Because they are huge questions and will involve deep engagement, won't they, on any number of, not just two sides, across any number of sides. It will involve deep engagement and take time.
Precisely that. And going back to just the first one, I mean, there's an agreement that, Steve Witkoff, U.S. Envoy Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, the President Trump's son-in-law, are in Cairo right now and have said that they will not leave before the mechanism for the exchange of hostages is in place. And so we can expect if this deal is going to go through, we can expect something within the next week or so, though the administration has confirmed there's no actual timeline because the issues are so complex to figure out. So there's that. But then as you pointed out, the second issue is, Hamas is balking at the idea of, they're saying, okay, we'll give up direct governance, but we want to be involved in Gaza's future. We want to reign, but not control, which I would argue is actually a terrible prospect for the people of Gaza, because that's a cheaper alternative for Hamas. No Arab or international investment will occur in reconstruction with Hamas still there. They're not really serious about giving up their weapons. They want a full Israeli withdrawal with no acceptance of an international stabilization force. And so I think people are rightfully concerned about that component. But for the time being, this seems that the focus of the administration and of Arab mediators is to just get this hostage release mechanism and the prisoner swap going, in hopes of eliminating this file from the secondary negotiations.
And can I ask you, before we move on to the conversation about the future, even the near future, the role of Qatar here, and perhaps Egypt, Turkey as well, but certainly Qatar. Is there any likelihood that they are now, their mediators or their people are now saying to the Hamas men that they have there, it's over, you either take this or you just get run out of town and killed? Those are your choices. You can have some protection if you choose this. You'll have no protection if you don't.
There's very much so a large amount of that happening, if you will, in the sense that the Qataris are they're bearing a heavy price with the airstrikes we saw, with their international isolation, if you will. Though we saw regional sympathy towards Doha after the Israeli airstrike, the Qataris have not, benefited from ultimately hosting Hamas there. Then you have the Egyptians, who are constantly worried about the prospect of a large number of Palestinians coming out of Gaza into Sinai. Excuse the sirens.
It's okay, don't worry. We love a bit of noise on radio. I wouldn't worry about it.
Exactly. And then you have the Turks, who are engaging in a rapprochement with the U.S. administration. They're trying to access capital markets. They're trying to access the F-35 stealth fighter program. They're trying to realign with the Trump administration. And so you got the three different players who, for their own reasons, are invested in seeing this war end ASAP. They may be somewhat ideologically, in the case of Qatar or Turkey, ideologically aligned with Hamas, but they're very much so realpolitik, pragmatic when it comes to their national interest. And so with that, I very much so believe there is a push. This is the end game. And I've been talking to current and former U.S. and Israeli officials here in Washington and beyond, who are saying this is the end game. There is nothing else. If this falls through, there is no amount of renegotiations are going to come up with a different deal. And so that's why, on the one hand, we're seeing Hamas saying a yes, but basically what they said is yes to the first component of the exchange, but no to the second component of the deal. However, Hamas realizes that once they give up the chief bargaining chip, which are the hostages, there's nothing left. So they're terrified. They know they've lost, but they're desperately clinging on to any set of guarantees from the Trump administration.
Well, let's talk about wider Palestinian leadership potential then, shall we, including the Palestinian Authority. I saw a conversation between you and an Israeli commentator, Haviv. Forgive me, I can't remember Haviv's second name, but I had the conversation between the two of you. And you were saying the Palestinian leadership, not Hamas, but the Palestinian leadership more widely, more generally, needs to stop lying to the people of Palestine and tell them how engaged they already are with the Israeli government, or with Israeli officials at least, and that there is a different way of doing this, and that you don't have to lean on Hamas or indeed cower under Hamas, because I'm sure after the amount of time that Gazans have been living under Hamas, psychologically there will be a great deal of fear about pushing back, I would imagine. You've spoken eloquently about those that do, who don't get nearly enough oxygen, do they, in terms of airtime, and that's an important part of it. But what do you mean when you say they lie to the Palestinian people, their leadership?
Well, let's take, for example, just yesterday, on the anniversary of October 7th, you had Jibril al-Jub, one of the central figures in the PA and in Fatah. And so he's part of the old guard of the Palestinian leadership. That's not Hamas. And he had a major security role in the PA. And he, in effect, indirectly praised October 7th and praised the steadfastness of our people and praised the ability of our people to be patient, and that they are just the martyrs, and all the rhetoric that is so commonplace in Palestinian politics, internal politics, about our people are so steadfast and we're not going anywhere. 2 months ago, Mohammed Shti, a former Palestinian prime minister, went on a podcast and said that, October 7th was ill-timed, it was just bad, but one has to admit it was a brilliant operation, and it was this and it was that. And why did it take Abu Mazen Abbas, President Abbas, whom I've dealt with in the past, why did it take him 2 years to come out against October 7th, even though from the get-go he was against it? It's because they fear that their legitimacy, that's already rock bottom, is going to be further diminished if they're actually honest and actually challenge the core elements of the Palestinian narrative, that resistance is the way to go, that
Violence.
boycotts and anti-normalization is the way to go. Did you know that in the Palestinian Authority right now, it is actually illegal? Like, there are laws against normalization. Like, you will be put in jail. I've had friends put in jail in the West Bank for engaging with Israelis around peace efforts, around, like, that's only allowed through the Palestinian official channels, but there are rules against people-to-people engagement as part of the anti-normalization that is codified.
Which is bad enough, but at least it's not what Hamas do when they find people doing that, which is to torture them and kill them. Yeah,
their
own people, their own Palestinians.
But that's not saying much, right? Like, no. The idea, nevertheless,
you're not as bad as Hamas. Yeah.
But this is where there's a difference between being a representative and a leader. A representative just feels where the wind are, and listen, I get it. People are upset with the settler violence, with the military occupation, with life under, there are grievances, legitimate Palestinian grievances against the state of Israel in terms of policies, historical and contemporary. However, the role of a leader, not a representative, of a leader, is to harness those sentiments and to craft them into something constructive and positive and and pragmatic, and to direct them away from repetitive narratives that have failed our people, and not simply regurgitate them.
And you've talked about Mahmoud Abbas and the older guard of the Palestinian Authority leadership and the Fatah leadership. You've spoken optimistically about new talent, new voices, new drive, Palestinian drive and talent and voices coming through. Is the most important thing the international community can do, both Arab and Western, is to enable those voices, enable those young, politically minded, future-minded Palestinians who want the place to thrive alongside Israel?
Precisely that. And the way to do so is not strictly through the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority, which, by the way, I don't want people to clip this because I deal with PA officials and they're going to get upset with me and they're going to say, oh my God, Ahmed, you're delegitimizing, whatever. Yes, the PA remains the representative of the Palestinian people, and this is the best we can hope for. We have to work with it, etc. I've established that on record.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking for the future, the actual nation building agenda.
Me too, actually, when I ask you the question, yeah.
I'm not thinking, 2 to 3 years from now. I'm thinking 5, 10, 20 years from now. I strongly believe that the Palestinian people, who are some of the most educated in the Arab region, the Gaza Strip has one of the highest PhDs per capita in the Arab world. Let that sink in, okay? How can we take that talent and not get it bogged down in Soviet-style governance and bureaucracy and corruption and all the stuff that comes with it,
and the old loathings that stop progress.
Precisely. People now look on their smartphones. They see the evolution of the world. They see the interconnectedness of Arabs. They see what's happening in the Gulf region. They see what's happening in North Africa. They want to be part of the global village, if you will. They don't want to be isolated in Gaza, surrounded by Israel and the sea on one hand and Egypt on the other, because of the resistance narrative. And so academics, technocrats, bureaucrats, artists, teachers, journalists, businessmen and women.
Full range of people like anybody else, yeah.
Precisely. People that you and I don't know their names, but if they're genuinely empowered, if they are given space to rejuvenate the Palestinian narrative, to redefine what does it mean to be Palestinian? What does it mean to be pro-Palestine? What does it mean to shift from the resistance narrative and more towards the coexistence and nation-building narrative?
And thriving.
Precisely that. I strongly believe that can produce a new generation of Palestinian leadership that will perform miracles. And by the way, I'm saying this from a Palestinian self-interested point of view, because oftentimes the de-radicalization narrative that so many observers and Westerners speak about is presented as, we have to do this for the sake of Israel and protecting Israel from another October 7th, which there's some truth to that. But I'm actually reframing this to say,
for the Palestinians,
100%.
Yeah.
And that de-radicalization is empowering. De-radicalization is progress, is thriving, it's rejuvenation. And that's why I spoke with Sir Tony Blair last December, and he helped me like coin this term of when I kept saying, I don't want to just rebuild Gaza. I want to revitalize it. I want to reimagine it. I want, something more than just putting stones back together. And he said, we need to reconstitute the Gaza Strip so that we don't just rebuild a bunch of refugee camps and have dependency on UNRWA the NGO industrial complex and aid dependency. No, we want Gaza to be regionally integrated. We want Gaza to be a city of the future, a corridor that establishes connectivity with the Gulf, with fiber optics, with data centers, with digital centers, AI, etc. And not just, by the way, beachfront properties, because that's capitalism for a small number of people. I want capitalism that benefits the majority of the population.
Ground upwards, yeah. Well, listen, I'm so glad we finally got to speak to one another, Ahmed. Thank you. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your family members in this dreadful war. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Gaza analyst, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, and clearly a Palestinian himself.